Hey guys, so today we are back with another episode of How the Mongol Empire Fell. Today we're going to be looking at the Yuan dynasty specifically, which, you know, of all the successor kingdoms, khanates rather, that the Mongols had, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of find the Yuan might be my personal favorite. I don't know what is it about it. I guess it's because I do find Kublai of all the successor Khans after that came after Genghis. I find Kublai the most interesting, and learning about him has actually been my favorite part so far of all these Mongol videos that we have that we've been consuming. So, yeah, I'll admit that, and also because I am interested in China, I think that's why the Yuan dynasty might just be my personal favorite, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more about it and exactly how it progressed after Kublai and what factors led to its eventual rather, fall. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Um, Before I get started, I want to say if you want to watch the original video by Kings and Generals, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to him. The link to the video is down in the description down below. It's always the first. And if you want to help me out, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe as well. It would really help my very small but humble channel, and I would appreciate it very much. Thank you. With that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let's watch and learn how the Yuan dynasty fell.
By the time of Kublai Khan's death in 1294, he had outlived his designated heir, passing it instead onto his drunken grandson, Timur-ul-Jeytu. In the almost 40 years from Kublai's death to the ascension of Turkun Timur Khan in 1333, 9 Khans were enthroned. Of them, only Timur-ul-Jeytu reigned over a decade.
Oh wow.
Rampant alcoholism and assassinations meant few Khans lived past 35. Timur-ul-Jeytu attempted.
There's that number again. 30. We saw it with all the other khanates, like the Ilkhanate, the Chagatais. Alcoholism seems to be a running theme among the Mongols, and not restricted to one khanate. So I find that an interesting thing, that alcoholism that seems so prevalent. And not just that, another running theme is that 30 number. So many of these Khans are dying at their 30s. That's a bit weird. Like that's a lot of that's quite the trend that we've noticed. And yeah, that's I don't know, eerie, weird. It's like, like the 27 Club, where all those celebrities like Jim Morrison and whatnot all died when they were 27. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like that, but for the Mongols, it's the 30s Club. Like, I don't know. That's a bit creepy or eerie to me, I find. So yeah. I don't know, am I alone in that? Do you guys find that weird, that theme of the early 30s death and the alcoholism? I don't know, that's just like eerie to me, I don't know why.
To continue the policies of his grandfather, but within a year the treasury was nearly empty, almost totally spent on lavish gifts for the princes after his enthronement. He learned too of the intense corruption of the Yuan court. The quota for court and capital officials was set at 2,600 persons. In the first year of Timur-ul-Jeytu's reign, it was found to be over 10,000. A 1303 investigation led to some 18,000 clerks and officials being charged with bribery. In typical fashion, Timur-ul-Jeytu lacked the commitment to push through with charges, and most of the accused maintained their posts. While it has been
That's not good. Yeah, corruption is no different to any empire, but usually when I go into Chinese history, corruption seems to be a very big, prevalent point among Chinese. I mean, again, it's not regulated to just China. This is all empires at one point or another. But I do notice in Chinese history, every time I dive into it personally, or like around that region, it really is always about corruption and just everything, kind of, I don't know, like falling apart. So I don't know. I find that very interesting.
Common to attest the Yuan dynasty's economic failings to corruption and lavish gift-giving, of which there was no shortage of, recent studies have highlighted a greater struggle. The 14th century was the start of the Little Ice Age, a global climatic shift towards generally cooler and wetter temperatures. Those strongly affected the Asian monsoon season, which in the 14th century manifested into a general trend of intense colds and snowfall in the Eurasian steppe, droughts in North China, and unending rains and typhoons in southern China. These began to be felt in the very first years of Timur Uljeto's reign. In 1295, typhoons struck the Yangtze River delta. The Yellow River broke its banks.
That's another trend every time I learn about China. The Yellow River always over flooding at one point or another. Like every time like I said, when I personally look into China, I always read about the Yellow River, like, being a problem. So that seems like another long running trend, huh? All these trends I'm picking up, I'm very happy about. But yeah, the Little Ice Age, huh? Dang, that sucks. I never heard of the Little, or have I? I can't remember, but that's quite a lot of natural disasters that probably the Yuan could do better without, huh?
In multiple places and caused repeated flooding, and a dry spell from the previous years resulted in plagues of locusts that eradicated crops and continued for the rest of the decade. In Mongolia, harsher winters starved herds and forced thousands south to seek support from the Khan. These ecological problems directly tied into the Yuan's economic woes. Kublai continued the Song policy of Huang Zheng. Government provided disaster relief in the form of cash, grain, rice, animals, and other supplies. It fit well into Kublai's efforts at reconstruction and relieving the burdens of the lower classes. None of Kublai's heirs dared repeal such a law, for it was the basis of Yuan legitimacy.
My story is about.
That's interesting. Though I will say, though, with all the lavish gift giving and the corruption of the government, I'd imagine finances might not already be doing too hot in the long run, keeping those issues up without fixing them. And this, in conjunction now with, I mean, granted, I think if the state or the dynasty is thriving itself, then this idea is really great, right? Like, here, let me fund you with grain and cattle and whatnot, but depending if the dynasty's doing in a bad shape, then this feels like it could potentially strain a very undelicate situation, you know what I mean? So I don't know about that. I mean, it's a good thing to do, I think, but I'm just talking, like, I guess in terms of economics, right? If it would severely affect the dynasty itself and the government. And it's interesting that Kublai set up that thing as a part of their legitimacy. I mean, yeah, I guess keeping up previous stuff for sure. And also, it is a great way to win people over, I think, because I think most of the, common folk would definitely be happy about this. You get what I mean, right? Like, let's get back to the video.
However, In a century of unprecedented climatic disasters over a vast geographic area, this was an impossible burden. The detailed Chinese records and the Yuan Shi reveal a dynasty facing yearly crises. From 1272 until 1357, there was a major famine somewhere in China almost every other year. Over 56 earthquakes were recorded. Super typhoons on the southern coast coincided with super snowstorms in the steppe. Exceptionally—
Dang, these typhoons keep coming back to haunt the Mongols, dude. Sorry, every time the typhoon comes back, I keep thinking, dang, the typhoon has it out for the Mongols, one way or another, especially the Yuans.
cold winters and unexpected frosts meant certain crops could no longer be grown in the north. The densely populated Yangtze River Delta, home to one of the most economically and agriculturally vital areas of the empire, suffered annual droughts, flooding, epidemics, starvation, and typhoons, which destroyed towns and farmland, causing thousands more to die in the ensuing famines. In 1301 alone, a spring drought in the Yangtze Delta was followed by a massive typhoon. Arable farmland was destroyed for 50 kilometers along the coastline, and a 40-meter high wave pushed 200—
Oh my gosh. Let me get that one more time. Holy crap.
agriculturally vital areas of the empire suffered annual droughts, flooding, epidemics, starvation, and typhoons, which destroyed—
I'm telling you, the typhoon keeps coming back, guys. Another trend. Every time we go back to the Yuan dynasty, the typhoon returns. By the way, I'm just joking. I know the area and, you know, typhoons are a natural thing, but I like this joke that typhoon just has it out for the Yuan dynasty. Oh man.
destroyed towns and farmland, causing thousands more to die in the ensuing famines. In 1301 alone, a spring drought in the Yangtze Delta was followed by a massive typhoon. Arable farmland was destroyed for 50 kilometers along the coastline, and a 40-meter high wave pushed 280 kilometers inland. 17,000 were killed during the storm, and—
Oh my, 17,000. You know, that's the thing with China. It has such a high manpower population reserve that when things happen in China, the numbers are insane. Like with Chinese wars or natural disasters, like the amount of, you know, like I said, that's another thing I notice anytime I go around China. When looking at its history, like especially in the war category, due to just their high population, every war ends up like a bloodbath. Like the amount of death is kind of insane, you know? Like the statistics, you know? That's so sad. It's good to watch some things like this only to be reminded of how terrifying nature actually is. You know what I mean? I tend to forget that even myself, but dang, nature, you scary.
100,000 starved in the aftermath. Only a month later, flooding displaced people in Manchuria. A freak August snowstorm killed herds in Mongolia. The imperial capital of Dadu was flooded, and a locust plague struck Hebei province. Survivors needed government relief. Grain and rice shortages caused the yuan to cover costs only with cash, and to provide more cash, more had to be printed, to the point it outstripped government revenues. Inflation was the result, and yuan paper—
This is what I'm talking about. Like, that principle of state-funded stuff is great when the state is doing well, but this is too much. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've seen economic disasters happen due to inflation and stuff like this happening. Wow. The Yuan dynasty is not doing so hot.
money became ever more worthless over the 1300s. With seemingly unending waves of natural calamities and an ever more worthless currency, it seemed the yuan were losing the mandate of heaven, the right to rule China. On Timur Uljatu's death in 1307, without surviving children, factions fought—
That's another interesting thing about the mandate of heaven. It's that you often hear at times in history where an emperor is so bad, people declare that they lose the mandate. So that despite the mandate being some divine thing, people can interpret it as they have lost it. The emperor, the dynasty has lost it, and that's often a justification for turning on them. So definitely, I could see that, the Yuan dynasty is going through that. Also, I'd imagine that, you know, the average Chinese person under the Yuan dynasty is aware that they're Mongols, right? So I'm wondering if that would feed into tensions, like, oh, they're not Chinese, So that would make it easier for them to like turn on them. You get what I mean? Since they are kind of, you know, the first Mongol dynasty, foreign one to. I'm not sure if there are any previous foreign dynasties to ever take place in China, but I do know this might be like one of the first Mongol ones. So, yeah, that's gonna be fresh on people's minds to some degree, right?
Formed around his nephews. His nephew Kaishan was a man of the steppe, with no love or understanding of Chinese culture. Hoping to rule like a nomad through his noyad, Mongol military elite, lavish gifts, princely titles, and palaces were spent on his friends and allies.
Oh no.
4 months into his reign, Kaishan found he spent over a year's worth of government revenue. In a panic, he spent the rest of his reign trying to address this, increasing taxes and collecting debts cancelled by Timur Iljetu.
Yep, he just realized he messed up big time and used his money in a way that wasn't gonna help. Yeah. Not good, to put it lightly.
A new currency was put into circulation, based on an exchange of 1 to 5 with the old. The volume of currency printed in 1310 was 7 times higher than the previous 3 years, succeeding only in furthering inflation. On his death in 1311, he was succeeded by his brother Ayubawada. The new Khan unleashed a violent purge of his brother's officials, reversed his policies, and abolished his currency. Ayubawada wanted a more traditionally Chinese Confucian government, and reinstated the civil service examination system to choose officials. He promoted the translation of Chinese classics into Mongolian, and began the codification of the Yuan legal system. Such was the ongoing back and forth with each new Khan, with the top layer of government usually suffering a bloody overhaul and total reversal of policies with each succession. Ayubawada died in 1320, aged only 35. His son and successor, Shidibala, spent most of his reign battling Ayubawada's powerful mother, only to be assassinated in 1323. His successor, his cousin Yesun Timur, was likely involved in the plot, and after only 5 years on the throne, died in 1328 of illness, also only 35. Yesun Timur.
That 30 number. Wow.
Timur's 8-year-old son, Ragibag, was enthroned at Chengdu on the efforts of Yesun Timur's chancellor, but the plan went awry when the central capital at Dadu was seized by the head of the powerful Kipchak Guard, El Timur, who placed Prince Tugh Timur on the throne. El Timur violently seized Chengdu, and young Ragibag Khan disappeared in the chaos. Soon after, Tugh Timur's older brother, Kushila, returned from his exile in the Chagatai Khanate. In August 1329, they met in a warm reunion, Tugh Timur recognizing his brother's overlordship. 4 days later, Kushila was dead, and Tugh Timur returned to the throne. But Tugh Timur did not enjoy power for his efforts, for El Timur of the Kipchak and his ally Bayan of the Merkit held real power, reducing the Khan to a figurehead. The Khan dedicated his reign to studying Chinese classics, practicing his calligraphy, and suffering immense guilt over his brother's murder. When he died in 1332, he had declared his brother's son, Iringibal, as his heir in place of his own minor son. An aging and ill El Timur reluctantly agreed, and the 6-year-old Iringibal was duly enthroned as Great Khan, only to die 2 months later. The court pressured el-Timur to recall Arinjabal's exiled older half-brother, Toghon Timur, though not before el-Timur married his daughter to him. Toghon Timur was the longest reigning Yuan sovereign after Kublai, ruling from 1333 until his death in 1370.
Oh wow.
At first, he, like his predecessor,
Okay, yeah, because that's the problem. Some of these guys feel like they're dropping like flies with the amount of guys we're going through. So we definitely need a longer, stable leader, right? But also a competent one.
was a puppet. On el-Timur's death, his ally Bayan took his place. He desired restoration to an imagined good old days under Kublai, and sought to enforce separations between Mongols and Chinese, which had blurred over previous decades. Chinese were banned from many government offices, forbidden from learning Mongolian and other West Asian languages, the civil service examinations were cancelled, the general population disarmed, and their horses were confiscated. Yet Bayan also wanted to make the government more efficient by cutting court expenditures and reducing stress on the empire's population by decreasing the high fees on the salt monopoly, encouraging agriculture, and improving and speeding up the government relief system. All his efforts were, of course, signed off by the young Toghon Timur, who lived in fear of him. Bayan's centralization of power and willingness to respond to rumors of threats with great violence galvanized resistance to him, including by his own nephew Togto. In spring 1340, Togto and Toghon Timur exiled Bayan, who died a month later. With him went the last of those who wanted to go back to the old ways.
Yeah, that's the thing though. You have to kind of adapt now. You know, you're ruling over China, and there is no going back to the old ways of Genghis Khan or whatnot. You know, and like the whole getting rid of the civil service exam, I'm not sure how effective it is in actually creating, you know, like competent, governmental aid. I'm not sure about its actual results, but you know, I find that the whole let's separate Mongols from China and all that, I don't know. I don't think I fully agreed with it, but either way, he's gone now. I think that whole let's go back to the old ways stubbornly mindset is not a good one to have. You kind of have to adapt and realize that the old ways won't blend well with these, you know, non-nomadic societies and whatnot. You kind of, even Kublai became very influenced by Chinese culture and whatnot, you know, and he kind of in some ways changed to match it. So yeah, like I think that's the thing. You have to, you can't just not, you have to change in some ways. You know, the nomadic way of life isn't gonna cut it fully. So I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Succeeded by those who recognized and even celebrated the Sinicization of the Mongol dynasty. The new generation of court leadership was symbolized by Togto. Only 26 years old at Bayan's ouster, Togto
26, so he has like 4 more years before he's dead.
was well educated and raised to prominence by his uncle. Unlike Bayan, Togto had no misconceptions about restoring things to Kublai's time. To Togto, Chinese culture and Confucianism were to be appreciated. Believing all dynastic problems could be solved with a steady hand and powerful government, Togto sought to centralize and strengthen the Yuan with a variety of reforms. His first period as chancellor saw the removal of the last of Bayan's allies, the restoration of the civil service examinations, greater incorporation of Confucian scholars into government than ever before, and actual visibility to Toghon Timur Khan. The Khan's family gave a decree denouncing his uncle Tugh Timur for murdering Koshila and had Tugh Timur's surviving son executed. Toghon Timur's own son, Ayushiridara, was entrusted to Togto to be raised and educated, and Togto put great energy into molding the boy into an ideal Confucianized Mongol ruler. Throughout this political upheaval, the environmental crises only worsened. The flight of the Mongols and other peoples of the northwest grew so bad that in 1323, 39% of the money printed was spent on trying to send the refugees back with aid, before ultimately forbidding anyone from leaving Mongolia on pain of death. Intense flooding every year of the 1320s annihilated croplands, and inflation only continued to rise, and the population grew ever more agitated. Overtook Timur's 3-year reign, 21 rebellions broke out. No new revenues could be found to pay for these expenditures.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's the thing though, like, it's hard to fix Mother Nature, because if all these disasters keep happening, the currency system and the governmental aid system, I don't know how you would adapt it to, like, fit with this, because, right, like he mentioned, it's such a huge burden, you know, and, like, causing this economic issue. I mean, I know it's beyond callous to just end it, right, and just not help people, but I just don't know how else you could continue helping people while doing it, you get me? It's, like, quite a really sticky situation to find yourself in. Because, like I said, I don't want to be like, just stop helping them, screw all the people, like, you know, like, the poor regular folk want help, you know, and it's, man, but at the same time, you're seeing just how the dynasty is having such a hard time keeping, like, up with it, you get me? That it's like, yeah, you're about to have, like, economic crises and stuff, and all these revolts, it's like a complete mess. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin, how you would begin to fix all this, man.
While the costs of relief, war, the court, and corruption continued to soar alongside inflation. While Chancellor Togto imagined carrying out great works to dazzle his contemporaries, his plans were cut short by the environment. This was a decade of annual earthquakes, unseasonal snowstorms eradicating entire herds, severe flooding, widespread famine, drought, and epidemic, including, in the opinion of some scholars, the start of the bubonic plague.
Oh no.
For the general population, the field of frustration finally began to bloom into violent uprisings in the 1340s. In 1341, there were over 300 bandit uprisings across central China, including the Red Turban movement. So called for their red headbands, this was a number of loosely connected groups which espoused a radical Confucianism, calling for a drastic change of society through military means to return to an older, purer China. Togto resigned his position in 1344, allowed his successor to take the blame, then returned triumphant in 1349 when recalled by the court. As by then Togon Timur Khan had grown bored of governing, Togto was now the dominant figure of the Yuan realm. Togto ordered the printing of great sums of money to tackle his greatest scheme, forcing back the Yellow River to once more enter the sea south of the Shandong Peninsula.
Dang, how's he gonna accomplish that? How's he gonna accomplish that? Can he accomplish that? Just put the river back to sea? Huh. That's an interesting scheme. Let's see if he succeeds. I want to know if he succeeds or not in that.
Back in 1344, 20 days of non-stop rain caused the river to break its banks and flood numerous districts and cities, cutting off the Grand Canal and draining into the Huai River, which caused it to rise and threaten the salt fields in Shandong and Hebei provinces, all before settling into a course north of the Shandong Peninsula. The threat to the salt fields was a particular concern, as the salt trade and its taxes provided 6/10 of Yuan yearly revenue, while the Grand Canal needed to be kept open to transport rice and grain north to feed the capital of Dadu. There was intense opposition to the project to reroute the Yellow River, but Togto forced the plan through, printing 2 million ingots worth of new currency to pay for it. From May to December 1351, 150,000 laborers and 20,000 soldiers dug a 140-kilometer long channel to successfully reroute the river. Once more the Grand Canal was fed, the salt fields were protected, and the Yellow River exited into the sea south of Shandong.
Wow.
Tokto's project was designed to protect the producers and economy of the Yuan dynasty, but it accidentally sparked off its ultimate collapse.
Dang.
The large gathering of workers, hungry and weak from years of famine, punished by cruel overseers trying to meet a strict timetable, and paid in money only a little above worthless, was fertile soil for the Red Turbans.
That sucks. Dang. He was trying to do this to help, but now he led. It basically seems like it's about to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, eh? Dang, that sucks. What a mess. Like, everything has been a mess, right? It's like everything... It's like playing Civilization on hard mode, on legendary difficulty. The moment Kublai went, everything just ramped up. Like, the natural disasters, the economy, the you know, the constant civil wars and the court intrigue and corruption. Everything that could go wrong, I feel like went wrong. Wow. No wonder you guys fell, like, dang, that they were playing Civilization on hard mode right now.
Even as work continued on the canal, a massive revolt erupted in the Huai River Valley. The Yuan were taken by surprise, and a number of cities fell in quick succession, with few city walls having been rebuilt after the initial conquest. In the first engagements, the government forces were poorly prepared and beaten back, including an army commanded by Tokto's brother. These were not the highly mobile horse archers of the conquest, but generally local Chinese militias, commanded by Mongols and Central Asians. But Chancellor Tokto was custom-made for this emergency. He immediately organized the defense, raised new armies, and conscripted militias. New training and command structures were implemented. He knew he had to tread carefully, lest mismanaged and underpaid troops join in the revolts. In a dizzying juggling effort, Tokto constantly shuffled larger military units, transferring and reappointing commanders around the empire to prevent them from forming alternate power bases. The Yellow Army, mostly Chinese volunteers under Mongol and Turkic commanders in yellow uniforms, became Tokto's nationwide apparatus of pacification, as termed by historian John Dardis. Leading the most important campaigns himself, Tokto began to halt, then push back, and finally overrun the rebellion. By the end of 1352, Tokto had brought the Huai River Valley back under control. Methodically, they retook cities, and by the end of 1354, Tokto was about to crush the final major figure of a largely broken movement, Jiang Shicheng, now isolated in his capital at Gaoyu. And at the last moment, Tulkun Timur Khan snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Oh dang,
For
what happened?
unclear reasons, the Khan ordered Tokto dismissed at the start of 1355. A short-sighted and inept monarch, perhaps fearful of Tokto's growing might, yet at the same time unable to replace him, Togon Timur ensured that Tokto's carefully balanced military machine collapsed instantly. Much of the army deserted.
Oh my gosh. Dude, just when Togtao was getting the rebellion under wraps, this dude basically juggling this army about to bring back some type of stability. Literally the worst moment to recall him. And apparently this rebellion gathered so much traction that now this place is distinguished from the rest of the empire and called the Southern Song. At least I think that's how it's supposed to be interpreted, but still either way, that sucks so hard. Dude, the Yuan dynasty, bro. How long did these guys last? I feel like they speed ran a fall pretty quick.
And the Red Turban Rebellion exploded with new vigor.
Oh my gosh.
Tokto, a loyal servant to the end, accepted his dismissal and was assassinated the following year.
Wow. That's the problem in history. When a guy is too competent and he outshines his superiors, he becomes a threat. And that's just the very brutal, cutthroat nature of the world. You never outshine your superiors. It's a rule, man. And he was outshining his con so much that but that sucks. It sucks more when it happens to someone who's legitimately loyal, right? Man.
Togun Timur sat almost idle as the Red Turban warlords fought for the right to succeed the Yuan. After the Battle of Lake Poyang, this was Zhu Yuanzhang, who soon declared the Ming dynasty. Togun Timur had little power over his remaining commanders, who fought each other as much as the Red Turbans. By the end of the summer of 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang, now enthroned as the Hongwu Emperor, sent his trusted general Shu Da to take Dadu. Togun Timur and his heir Ayashiridara fled to Mongolia only days before the arrival of the Ming armies, and on the 20th of September 1368, Dadu came into Chinese rule for the first time in over 400 years. The Hongwu Emperor renamed the city to Beiping, meaning pacified north. In time, the
And so that's the end of Mongolian China, huh? Wow. So much went wrong, it's amazing. Like I said, I feel like everything that could go wrong for a dynasty went wrong. All, like, really fast.
city became the capital of the Ming dynasty and was renamed to Beijing, the name it holds today.
Hmm. I did recognize that name.
Aside from a few Yuan loyalists who held out for another 20-odd years, Mongol rule in China ended in 1368. The Yuan dynasty, contrary to common depictions, had responded vigorously to a dramatic climatic emergency, but could not overcome such a massive crisis. Few states, though, could have survived such a threat, while simultaneously suffering rampant political and economic turmoil.
Agreed. There's a lot that I don't see how they could have gotten out. Well, they could have ended the rebellion if they hadn't, like, removed, him from his position, but everything else was still gonna be a disaster. Like, the natural disasters and the economy, like that, I don't know, like, how you could even begin fixing that stuff, so... Again, they could have ended the rebellion at least, but everything else was still gonna be around. The causes for the rebellion were still gonna be around, so I just feel like these guys were screwed,
Turmoil that was continually compounded by the environmental crisis. In this respect, it remains impressive that the successors of Kublai Khan lasted even 70 years.
70 years only? Not even a full century. Dang. Wait. Okay, so let's see. AI overview. 327. Okay, so quick Google searching is saying 279 or 368. But then there's 271 also as a thing. So yeah, not even a full century. Close though, but to be fair, with all that disaster, I think that's a miracle in itself. Wow. That was crazy. That was a great one. I was most enthusiastic about learning about the Yuan dynasty, so I'm very happy to have learned about that and all. Like I said, they were playing on legendary difficulty, bro. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. It's kind of amazing. Holy crap. But yeah, we're gonna wrap this up tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow we're gonna learn about the fall of the Golden Horde. So I'll see you then. Bye, everyone.